Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of On Authentic Leadership with the Colonel and the Coach. We are your hosts, Matt Smith, U.S. Air Force retired. I'm the Colonel, and I am joined by my co-host, Cam Ellsworth, the Coach. Today, we have a couple of very special guests who represent Combat Vets Motorcycle Association. And, there's a lot of opportunity to talk about issues which affect veterans. And one of the organizations that plays a key role in helping our veterans, especially as they transition out of active duty, really regardless of rank, into the civilian world, is CVMA. We would like to introduce two guests today. I'll give them an opportunity to talk about themselves here in a second, but we have Colonel Trent Carpenter, U.S. Air Force retired, and Lieutenant Colonel Char Carpenter, who is currently active duty in the Air Force, and they are part of what's known as Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, aka CVMA. And Carp and Char, if you guys could just take a few moments to introduce yourselves and let our listeners and our viewers know who you are and what makes you you. So, Carp, over to you.
Thank you, Smitty. And thanks, Coach Cam, for having us here. It's a pleasure for both of us to be here. My name's Trent Carpenter in the Combat Vets Motorcycle Association, Florida, Chapter 2017. And as Smitty already mentioned, I am a retired colonel, did 27 years in the Air Force, and now living down here in Florida with my beautiful wife, who will now introduce herself.
Again, thanks, Colonel. Thanks, Coach Cam. Absolutely love the opportunity to be on here. Love your guys' show. Thank you so much. Char Carpenter. I go by Pixie is my road name with the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. I am currently serving as a Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Air Force, currently stationed at Central Command down here in Tampa, Florida. Thanks again.
Awesome. If you guys could just talk to what drew you to CVMA and, kind of like what the CVMA mission means to you, and then just kind of like what keeps that fire burning to continue to support, veterans, and arguably instead of just going off and doing your own thing, kind of what's that connective tissue, and what that means to you all.
We started with this Combat Vets Motorcycle Association about in 2021 when we were up in New Jersey, our first chapter up there, Chapter 38-1, Jersey Devils, and then came down here to Florida after a couple years, and now are proud members of our home chapter, Florida 2017. The question is, we wanted to do something that, obviously to help give back to veterans. One of the kind of unofficial models you'll see, or mottos that you'll see of the Combat Vets Motorcycle Association is vets helping vets. And we do that in a number of different ways. But mainly, I think you'll find that the thing that what are people looking for when they get out of the military? You've had this entire career, some short, some long, 4 to 24 years, whatever, some longer, some shorter. But I think you'll find the parallels in any team sport to where you go through something really hard, really awesome, whether you call it trauma bonding or whatever the case may be in your military career or in your sports career on a team going through, a season and playoffs and hopefully a championship or almost getting there or quite not. But you go through that with a lot of folks, and you go through a lot of pain, blood, sweat, and tears. So when you get out of the military, there's kind of a void there. You're missing something. You miss all your buddies and your bros and your sisters. And that is one of the first things that drew me to the CVMA, was being able to have that unity and that cohesion again with like-minded folks who, oh, by the way, also we like to ride motorcycles. So if you combine those two different things of vets helping vets and being able to give back to the community, whether it's at different types of organizations that support veterans, that we help them do that, or it's just us internal helping out local veterans in our areas, and all the while doing that while we're riding motorcycles. So it's a really good feeling. And I know we'll get into some of the specifics of some of the things that we've done. It's a really great experience, and to be tied into a unit like that again and bring folks together.
What I would like to expand on is the fact that, before, when we were serving in the military and we are all combat veterans, that means that in order to be part of this organization, not only is it a requirement for you to own and operate a motorcycle that's 500 cc's or greater, but you also have to have served previously during your military career in a combat zone. So when Carp talks about, hey, whether it's trauma bonding or whatever, a lot of these folks have seen combat, and a lot of them, now that they are no longer in the military, find some of that wholeness and find a lot of that therapy. We like to call it wind therapy when you're out on the bike. Just having the ability to get out and ride with people who've gone through a lot of the same experiences with you is therapeutic in and of itself. So that's an additional bond that forms just because of having that biker culture that we like to embrace. Meanwhile, we all understand that there are so many veteran issues that may not be as mainstream as some of the other top social concerns of the day, but they are out there, and this gives us an opportunity to give back to people who are in another community that we are all a part of and connected by, and that is being a veteran. So both of those things combined just gives us not only that social network that may be difficult to break into when you're no longer in the military, but also gives us a purpose and gives us basically a flag to rally around. And that's what the Combat Vets Association patch is all about.
Char, just a quick follow-up question. There's roughly 24% is active duty officers in the Air Force, and the numbers for the enlisted are a touch lower, but overall military is active duty U.S. military for women is 17.5%. And I saw a lot of your guys' pictures and read a lot of the stories and whatnot. And it seems to me that women play a large role just in all the things you guys do, whether they're memorial services, whether it's honoring a veteran that didn't necessarily have sponsorship, right, that didn't have a family, and arguably everything in between. And I think that you guys allow just an opportunity for just a much different perspective because you guys are just different in a, arguably in a really good way. Can you talk to just either, your experiences just as a woman in this organization? And then, do you think that the numbers should be greater for CVMA? Would you like to see more women, either folks that are associate members or folks that are supporters of CVMA, to include the folks you talked about, or, being that there is a lot of women out there that have employed or deployed in combat?
So for a veteran, especially as we transition from, I guess, kind of the old guard to a more, better understanding of what women can bring to any organization, whether it's the military or anything else, you think about the Band of Brothers, right? They were a brotherhood. This may not be an incredibly popular opinion, but we give words meaning. A word is just a word. I am very proud to be part of the brotherhood. That can mean everybody. Everyone who's part of the group can be part of the brotherhood. But what you'll find within the Combat Vets Motorcycle Association is another one of our mottos is sisters and brothers before others. You'll see a lot of folks with that patch that says SNB before O. And that's what that means. So would I like to see more women involved in the organization? Absolutely. If you can see on our national Facebook page, there was actually a whole effort during our national convention that took place earlier this year, honoring women veterans. And there were all kinds of women veterans who were able to get up and show their colors, both from their service and as a Combat Vets Motorcycle Association full member, which means they served as a military member and they were deployed to a combat zone during their time of service. And the numbers were actually very impressive. Obviously, those are we have the 2 requirements to join. I would love to see more women involved, but even as you were mentioning, we have support members who are veterans who did not necessarily deploy to a combat zone, and then our auxiliary members who are the spouses of combat veterans. And those could be men and women, just as military spouses could be men and women. And it's become a lot more normalized, I think, not necessarily in the 4 years since we've joined. I think that everyone has felt a level of comfort and just everyone is embraced within the organization. So yeah, it would be awesome to see more women full members, but I've never felt like, hey, there's not a lot of feminine influence in this organization. I think it's there, and I think especially like if you look around the chapters across the country, you'll see plenty of women who are in chapter board, executive board roles. I'm the public relations officer within our chapter, and there's chapter commanders who are women. So I think we've done a really good job in making sure that everyone's effort and everyone's contribution is valued.
Guys, thanks for being here and for everything that you do, your service first and foremost, and then the continued push to help others. Char, you made a mention earlier, a little while earlier, but just about some of the issues that you guys tackle, and maybe they're not front and center in the public eye. And while I agree with that, I had a friend that had served in combat, took his own life. And, as serendipitous as it was, I didn't know who to call. It was very challenging. And I called Matt. And unfortunately, he had been through it before. And when you start peeling back some of the numbers, it is scary, and it probably should be more in the forefront. Again, not to start with too heavy, but like as some stuff that you've sent us about what you do, and obviously just bringing to light some different issues like veteran suicide. I'm sure you all have been infected, and again, in my small world of people I know I have. If you could just, again, a little bit open-ended, but could you speak to it, coming out of active duty and back into society, and then maybe what you guys do as a group, different organizations that you support?
Yes, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that, and I can't speak to exact numbers, but if you look across any chapter, and there's hundreds of them across the country, but even within our own chapter, and certainly in our chapter in New Jersey, there were several, way too many people who had been affected by someone that they cared about, who they lost due to suicide, who were veterans. So a couple of things, again, going back to Sisters and Brothers Before Others, one of our goals is to make sure that everyone in the chapter knows that if anything ever happens, there is no reason you can't reach out and you'll be able to talk to somebody. So like when you said you needed to talk to someone after the situation that affected you so deeply, you called Matt. You had someone to call. Not everybody has that. This organization gives you that. It is there. There is always somebody that you can reach out to, and they will call you. We also have a lot of chaplains within our organization as well, either at the state level or at the chapter level, and at the national level as well. So that service is available, someone who is always there to listen. The statistic is 22 per day, 22 veteran suicides per day. That is an astounding number. When you go back to what Smitty was saying about, how many people actually served in the military, it's way too high. So there are different types of ways that we try to address this, but it starts at the grassroots level. It starts with us within our own chapter and how we are there to support each other. And always know that a lot of times it's just, where do I find that hope? So we give each other hope, we give each other purpose, we give each other that outlet. And then going beyond that, there are lots of organizations throughout the country. Here, there's a ride that's sponsored every October that we've participated in with our chapter, and it's again to raise awareness. I think last year there were well over, 600 bikes, Jeeps, performance vehicles that all participated in this procession that went across most of Central and Southwest Florida. Again, and that's to raise awareness. It raises funds for different organizations that support folks, veterans, the Veteran Crisis Hotline, and different efforts that go into making sure that whether it's the mental health issue that is being addressed through those types of services, to providing veterans that level of comfort, whether it's shelter, whether it's other types of support, to make sure that that's one less indicator or one less warning that could cause someone to make that fateful final decision.
What would you guys say to like someone who, they don't ride motorcycles, not because they don't necessarily like them, but just they hear about your guys' cause at one of the chapters across the country, and they're like, wow, that's cool. Like for example, at Christmas time, you hear whatever, Toys for Tots from the Marine Corps. You guys are always doing runs to raise money for something. What would you guys want to say to someone who like wants to just, maybe they don't have time to give, but maybe they have resources to give, or maybe they can, sponsor something in some way, shape, or form, to try to make an impact, in their own way. How do you guys make that happen? Whether it's in Florida, or whether it's in Jersey, or just some other chapter in the U.S.?
Yeah, great question, Smitty. The first thing I do is put them in touch with that person in the bottom right quad right now, as you're seeing here. Pixie as our public relations officer for that. But seriously, we have a lot of contact like that when we go out and do events. There's two kinds of, I won't say thoughts. There's two parts of the mission. One is helping local veterans or supporting other organizations that support veterans. So we're out there helping with those. And we run into a lot of folks doing some of those other events like Homes for Our Troops, or when we support the Marine Corps, Toys for Tots, or any of those, rides that we do throughout the year. But what we can do with those folks is get them in contact and say, hey, if somebody comes up and says, I'd like to support you guys, this is a great cause. Then we figure out, what type of events are we doing or that are upcoming on the calendar, or just getting them, what is it that you want to support? Is it something material? Or do you want to provide food or man hours or some sort of time as a resource? Or is it, no kidding, you just want to donate to something, or you just want to be around when we're doing these types of events? It kind of depends. But that same answer is they get in contact with us, and then we add them onto a contact list, if you will, or kind of a go-to of, by the way, you mentioned you wanted to help out with this event. This is coming up in a couple months. If you can still support, or if you'd like to come out, that'd be great. Or if you just like to come out and see what we do at a meeting, and that's great as well. And who knows, maybe we talk them into joining the chapter, buying a motorcycle, and if they're meeting all the requirements, or just being one of those people that we lean heavily on to help us with organizations that we support and things that we're out there doing. So that's kind of a mixed bag answer. And hopefully, in the words of one of our old mentors, Smitty Double D, throwing mud against the wall and hoping something sticks. But it all actually applies to where there's always something that somebody can do to help this out, or to help out our mission of helping out the local veterans as well as internal veterans, which I think that's also something internal to our own organization. We put a lot of focus on other already established organizations. So some of the big names that you'll see out there, obviously Tunnels to Towers and whatever local VA hospitals out there, we love doing stuff like that for them. But at the same time, we need to look inside our own organization, whether that be as a whole to the CVMA or within the state or within the chapter, because typically somebody needs some sort of help, or may need our assistance, and we may not know that. So it's kind of a it depends answer.
I'm not sure if either of you have heard of the Stop Soldier Suicide Project. That is a great fundraiser, and there are a lot of events that we support that also support that particular organization, and it is a great one. It is really the folks who are behind that, and that's at a nationwide level. So that's Stop Soldier Suicide. And then also, when getting back into the mental health aspect of this, there's a lot of I think there's a lot you could probably find online statistically about some veteran specific type issues that arose resulting from their service, like stuff like PTSD or traumatic brain injury, that makes people more susceptible, or more of an at-risk population of folks who may experience the desire to take one's own life. So having those types of resources, I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure we're supporting. Carp mentioned Homes for Our Troops. These are severely injured veterans who have been granted the funding to have adapted smart homes built for them completely free of charge, and it's all donation based. So having that level of shelter, having that level of comfort in your life, and knowing that you can at least shelter yourself and your family, that is a huge impact. So having those types of levels of comfort and safety, and knowing that it's going to be okay, that is such a huge part of what we do. And that's again why, for a lot of people, just getting out and going for a ride can, be an incredibly healing experience for a lot of folks who may be dealing with something that they don't feel like they can get past.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sure, I see the Stop Soldier Suicide now, and to your point, actually, one of the things that they target actually is the home aiding folks in finding a home. So like before someone goes homeless, looks like they help pair folks with resources in the area that they're at. And it looks like there's multiple organizations, CVMA, Wounded Warrior, all sorts of ones that are partnered with them. The Veterans Crisis Line. There's all sorts of, that seems like a very, a very strong organization. They also deal with veteran firearm safety stuff as well. So that's good. Yeah, I was down in Boston, obviously with you guys, and last week, I think it was Wednesday, I saw a sign, and maybe you guys saw the bulletin board as well, but 150,000 veterans have taken their life since 9/11. And that to me, that's a staggering number. And it's good to know. I think it's good to know that there's organizations out there like you guys that are either actively engaged or pairing people up with the right resources. Because arguably, I mean, you guys are airmen, but I would argue it's not just soldiers, right? It's soldiers, heroes, airmen, Marines, Guardian, coasties, all that sort of stuff that experience that level, that can experience that level of trauma. So that it would affect them to to need those level of services. That's really good.
I feel like there's an awareness, Char, you mentioned it, to say that there's 22 veterans a day committing suicide, to read off the amount of support there is, multiple different organizations trying to help veterans, the lift that is expected from a country writ large of said veterans. Where do you guys, or how do you guys stand on that balance beam of the work you do, but maybe needing more support, right? Like you guys, there's probably more support that's needed for the fact that we're sitting here talking about these issues. I don't mean this as a pun, but you're on the front lines of trying to help a bunch of people. I just feel like maybe it should be more of a topic. I feel like maybe it should have more support, whether that's nationally, government. Again, I'm asking you, but just, I don't know if that question resonates, but I just feel like it shouldn't be something that people don't know about.
Yeah, I'll add on and then let Char, she wants to pile on after this. But, something both you said, Smitty and Cam, is like, there's all these organizations that dive into this and try to help this, but why is it still happening? Something's not working, right? There is some gap in that solution, at least as a nation, that we've tried to develop in solving this. And, I don't know. The only thing that I can think of is the communication and being able to reach out to those folks, because probably those folks that end up thinking that's deciding to use that as their solution aren't talking to folks or aren't aware or just by themselves somewhere and not being able to just reach out and have somebody talk to them, or at least express what they're feeling to somebody else that can at least just listen to them. That's the heartbreaking part, is trying to be able to ID where those folks are, or who those at-risk people are, and where they are, and how do we get in contact with them, or at least let them know. And you can't force somebody to reach out if they don't want to. If they really get into that type of situation, it's almost becomes a forceful, door kicking, for lack of a better pun, to get in there and help these folks. And so I don't know what the answer is, Cam, on that, other than us trying to be able to let people know that communication highway is there for them to be able to talk. Because if somebody's sitting alone in their living room one night and they've done it over and over, and you'll see some of this in text, like in some other groups that we're in, where you can start to see where people are sliding and they're just kind of posting random, hey, this happened, or I can't believe this happened. And the amount of outpouring when something like that, when there is some red flag trigger in some of our group texts, not in our chapter, but it's people are tuned to look for that type of thing. But nationally, on our page, when something like that happens, people are jumping all over it, and they're going over to their house, they're knocking on the door. And we need to be able to have something like that type of model that the CVMA, our brothers and sisters out there across the nation and in Asia and Europe, are executing to go out and stop somebody, or at least, hey, this sounds kind of squirrely. I'm going over to Joe's house right now to see what's going on. And I've seen that situation play out, more times than I can count on one hand, of people getting, hey, I'm good to go. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. This was exactly what I needed, those types of things. So I think communication and the awareness of there's somebody to talk to is what's lacking. And that is what we try to do from our organization, at least from my opinion. And granted, this whole thing is, these are our opinions, not necessarily reflecting, the ideals and views of the CVMA at large, but from Carp and Char's point of view, this is where we think that we could get after some of those problems you're mentioning.
And Carp, you would say, like, at least the stories you've told me, is like people feel like it's okay to reach out as well. Like, in other words, like they're whether that's over text or whether that's over over a drink, over a ride, or whatever. But it seems to me that you guys welcome that level of engagement from folks, just like as if you were a commander, just like if you were a first sergeant, just like if you were a supervisor, and all that sort of stuff. So it seems to me that just some of it's a continuation of just, the good solid habit patterns that we had on active duty or in the guard or in the reserve, and just trying to continue that relationship because we knew that it worked then, and just trying to form those solid habit patterns. It just so happens it's an organization where we ride, awesome motorcycles around and go do things which help people. Would you agree with that sentiment? Over?
But there's no shortage of folks that will go out and say, hey, does anybody want to go out and have a cigar tonight? Or can somebody, I'm going to be out by myself. I'm going to be at this bar or whatever. And sometimes you can kind of read between the lines that person just wants to talk to somebody. And there's 2-3 people jumping on that. Hey, I'll be out there, or come on by and just hang out, or have somebody over for dinner or something like that. But if somebody's going out on a motorcycle, no, you're not going to have to ask twice in an organization like this for someone else to have a reason to go get on their motorcycle and get some wind therapy to go help out a brother or a sister.
As a follow-up to that, what would you guys say? And I know that sometimes there's unplanned events, right? Like, for example, there's a fallen veteran and we need to rally the troops to go support him or her. But is there either a formal or an informal event that you guys have done as a chapter or as individuals that you're just, maybe you're like, crap, the timing doesn't work. I have all of this work to do, and all that sort of stuff. And then you end up doing it. And like you guys say, you get the wind therapy, you see the sisters and brothers and all that sort of stuff. And then you get to the event. The next thing you know, you're getting a little bit emotional, or maybe you're filled with pride. Is there anything that sticks out from your guys' time over the last several years where you're like, wow, I am so glad that I went to that event because it was so impactful?
I know I told you and our friend Cam Big Dog the first time I did one of these, and I'll let Char go after this because I know what she's going to say, because of both of these two that stick out. There's so many there. To answer your first question, the first part of that, there's a lot that goes on in the calendar, and there's a lot of times when folks are not available and you're like, oh, there's 1-2 people, or maybe none. We've got a couple really diehard folks that one of them we call Ambassador Quills, just a all around great dude who is at every single event. It seems like he is out there across the state, interstate, doing these events and just, showing the colors for not only CVMA, but our chapter 2017, and just being out there and representing. And it's so heartwarming to see some of those things happen. But me personally, the first time that I went on one of our sister chapters, 2010, started this program years ago called the Final Mile. And the whole point of that was when you have an unclaimed veteran who passes away. I didn't know what the term unclaimed meant. That means somebody without next to kin, or somebody's not, he doesn't have anybody. That guy's all by himself. That guy or gal is all by themselves. And just thinking about that, just think about that for a second. He's in a hospital and he passes away and there's nobody there. And so what are they going to do? 2010 started this program way back when, and they worked with the Veterans Affairs, Mortuary Affairs folks at the VA, started at James A. Haley Hospital. And they said, well, we need to do something for this. And so they figured out a way to have a dignified transfer of this person, this unclaimed veteran, to one of the national cemeteries, whatever his final place of resting. And typically that's up north at Bushnell National Cemetery, north of here, about 45 minutes, or we have another national cemetery down in Sarasota. So it's typically one of those two things. So I went on one of these things not knowing what to expect. We're going to provide an escort for a veteran who we're going to take to up to Bushnell. And, that'd be cool. That'd be it. But man, it hits you right in the feels right from the very beginning. We all got there. We're kind of waiting around, hearing the story of this person who was at the first one that I went on was a U.S. Navy hospital corpsman named Barry Silverman. And, you start learning about this person, and the local law enforcement's involved. Everything's coordinated through 2010, who had started this program, like I mentioned. And what an amazing way to do something and honor somebody who wouldn't have anybody there at all. They could just have their remains cremated and taken off and nobody would know it, or buried 6 feet down, nobody around. And it's just heartbreaking to think of that. And then we coordinated with everybody, waited for him. They brought out his body, put him in a hearse, with all the pomp and circumstance of service flag, American flag, and about 100 people escorting him from law enforcement escort from the hospital, lights flashing, sections stopped, and we're just blazing down, escorting Barry all the way up, an hour up to Bushnell. And then we kind of wait our turn to, if you've been to a a service up there. They've big long lanes, and you go up there and you wait, and then they take you to where the service is going to happen, and they'll say a couple words about his service. The VA point of contact or the director at the time, Eric, would say something, and then they'll have an honor guard, just like any other honor guard that performs the service, folds the flag, and then gives it to whoever is there to receive the flag. In that case, that was my first one. I received it because there's nobody else to hand it to. That's kind of the thing. And it just sticks with you. You're like, man, I was so glad that I went, because I was thinking that maybe not, but we'll see as work. It's, September and something was going on with our job and blah, blah, blah. But man, I could not have been more happy to attend that event and to be able to see how that ceremony takes place, and to be able to honor somebody like that who's by themselves, and now he's not. We're there, we're all there. We're lots of us to be able to do that, and the amount of effort, including the sheriffs and the local PD and all that. It was very, very heartwarming and a significant emotional event, for lack of a better term.
You got a story as powerful as that? It's tough to follow.
It is, but it's always tough to follow Carp, but normally he does right in front of me, so I'm pretty used to it by now. So I've got a couple, and I'll keep them brief because I think that they're both kind of important in the scale compared to the impact that they had. The first one is the opportunity to an escort ride for Homes for Our Troops for a sergeant who had his home built. The Homes for Our Troops organization, which again is nationwide, so it's not just specific to Florida. A gentleman who had his home finished in Lithia, Florida. We met up down there, and the fire department was there to help escort. The Patriot Guard riders were there, American Legion riders, American veteran riders. And by the way, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is just knowing what's available to you. There's so many veteran support organizations out there who are desperate to help people who are desperate for help. So just knowing that those resources are there, and all you have to do is reach out to them either via their website or Facebook page. I mean, goodness gracious, it seems like everyone can get to you at all times now. And it's the same way with these organizations. It's just knowing that that's out there and being willing to make that step. And then part of what we're doing, even as part of these escort rides or whatever, is getting out and people seeing you fly your colors out there and knowing, hey, this is available. So we've got, again, American Legion riders, AMVETS riders, Patriot Guard riders. There's other organizations that are there supporting this escort. So we start at one location, then we end at the house. So we've got the key ceremony for this particular Homes for Our Troops NCO who's getting his home, his smart adapted home, with his wife, who is also there with him. And just seeing all of these people waving the American flag when you're riding up to his house, and just seeing the look on his face and his wife's face, and just the absolute relief that is present on their faces, and just getting to speak to him and hear about his experiences. This was an OEF veteran on this particular case. Just seeing how absolutely grateful they are to be able to have this new lease. It's a completely new lease on life. And you go to the website, and they've got these promotional videos that they've done with the actual military veteran who's the recipient of one of these homes. And it's just absolutely heartwarming. And they're just normal folks. They don't want anything. A lot of them said that they'd heard about the program, but they waited a year or two before they actually applied for it, because they were like, who am I? I'm nobody. Why would I be deserving of something like this? And that's just the attitude that we've got to be able to break through. Yes, you are enough. You deserve a life that you can live in and be proud of and find value in. So being a part of that key ceremony and being part of that escort was huge. But no more so than actually being able to meet the other folks who are out there who have the same goals that you do, being in the Combat Vets Association. No matter what organization they're a part of, we have those values in common. And then the second one was just locally, someone talked to someone who got in touch with us through our website and or our Facebook page and was like, hey, I don't know if this is something you guys do, but my dad is living with me right now. He's in kidney failure. He has dementia. He's an Army Vietnam veteran. He also has suffered with PTSD his whole life. And he loved to ride motorcycles back when he could still ride. So I think it would be awesome for him if you guys could just get a few folks together, ride by his house, and come in and talk to him for a little bit. And that's exactly what we did. We had about 10 bikes. We got together. We rode out to the daughter's home. We went in there, stood around his hospital bed that was set up in the living room. So right when you walk in the house, it's right there, front and center. And just the look on this veteran's face when we walked in, and we've got our colors on. We're going in, and he just talked to us. He talked to us about places he used to ride. He talked to us about his time in the service. We joked with him, and it was just a great time. And I think we spent about an hour there and then hopped back on our bikes and rode home. That was an extremely gratifying experience because there wasn't any press there. There wasn't any formal escort. It was just a bunch of us getting together to go sit with a vet to maybe help him live vicariously a little bit of the great times that he had, and just remind him that you are important.
One of those organizations you talk about, Char, Carp, the Homes for Our Troops, is actually the number 2 of 10 best veteran nonprofit organizations out there, which is pretty awesome.
I don't doubt it. They do a really good job, and to see the look on those folks' faces when they get selected, or we have the initial ceremony when we announce it to them, or at least they find out that they've been selected, and it's just tears rolling, man. And there's not a dry in the room, and then you have guys explaining that he's so happy that he is not going to have to lay on the floor of the bathroom and brush his teeth in a bucket and try to, low crawl over into the tub because he can't stand up in the shower. And now he's got a smart, adaptable home where he can do all those things. And they got all the different pictures of what he's going to get. And then to close that out, a year later, like what Char was saying with the key ceremony, and they actually get to go in there and use it. Man, it is just like, if that's not just hitting you right in the heart, then I don't know what else can. But it makes you feel good. So that's a little bit of selfishness for doing that whole thing, but really just seeing the look on their faces and their families and their kids who are so happy that they're able to have what is as normal a life they can have now after being a single, double, you name it, amputee, or with all kinds of problems. And it's really heartwarming.
So if you guys could answer these 2 questions, what is, like, for example, the first question is, what's one thing you would want CVMA people out there to know? So there's somebody that's whatever in Montana, in, Washington State, in Nevada, wherever. What's something you would want to share with them, but what's something you would want them to know just about CVMA you think that they might not know? And then, 2 is, what would you want someone out there to know about CVMA that maybe isn't familiar, with the organization, just to kind of get them on board to be a champion of your guys' important cause?
Well, let's see if I can answer these in order. What I would like for anyone to know about the CVMA that may not be very widely known is we are not a motorcycle club. You'll see that on our main webpage for the national website, but we are not a club. Yes, we try to embrace that culture of brotherhood, of sisterhood, where we ride together, we have each other's backs no matter what. But as far as the club affiliation goes, we are an all volunteer organization. You can join at any time. You can turn in your patch as well. If it's not for you, that's fine. It's not for everybody. But first and foremost, we are not a club. We are a group of people with similar values, similar experiences who like to ride motorcycles. And that's it. And then something that I would like to have everyone know that may not be as widely known is that we stand by the motto, Vets Helping Vets, whether it's official, unofficial, whatever. That is our purpose. We ride motorcycles together. We are here to help veterans, and we are absolutely wanting to make sure that if there is a veteran in need and we have the capacity or the capability to help them in whatever that may be, whether it's finding the resources they need to overcome something that they feel is not overcomable, to just finding a group of people, because our meetings are open meetings. They're open to the public. We're a nonprofit organization. So anybody can come and hang out with us. If you're just looking for somebody to talk to or just hang out with or just be around other people, we are here and everyone's welcome.
And Char, just as before I hand it over to Carp, how would someone find out that there's a meeting and it's open to the public if they don't have like a number that they can log on to the Facebook site with?
Well, there is, from our national website, there is a contact form that you can fill out, and it may take a couple of days, but these guys who are on our national board and in our state boards, they're really responsive dudes and dudettes. They're all over it. That'll make it from national down to state, down to the chapter that's nearest to them, because they'll have to put their contact information and where they're at the time. So that gets to us, and then we reach out to them immediately and let them know. And then there is a huge presence on Facebook. Most of the chapters have a web page. As the chapter pro, I am ashamed to say I still haven't gotten ours up and running yet. Still working through that, but a lot of the chapters do have their own web pages, but mostly a lot of what we do is available on Facebook, and most of the pages or the groups are public, so you can go and check that out. And we try to post our events there.
I can't follow that. That was an amazing answer. The first part is reach out, and if you need help or if you want to provide help, kind of going back to your first question, Smitty, what would somebody do who would be interested? Then go through those. That stuff is like clockwork, as Char's already said. They'll get it down. We get those. I don't know. I got at least 3 in here this week of folks that are interested in our organization and wanting to do either join or provide help. So getting the contact information out there to them and being able to have them fill out that form and make contact with us. And then if they want to do something, then to find, to get in contact with their local chapter, whatever is closest to them, so they can, because our guys and gals across the entire organization will not hesitate to jump to try to support something or to try to help somebody. If somebody out there has a problem, anywhere from a broken down bike on the road to going to a VA hospital to help build a new gazebo or something to make someone's lives better. That is, part of our mission statement is making veteran lives better and giving them a better quality of life. That's kind of what I was thinking of. It's giving them being able to improve and enhance and contribute to a better quality of life for those veterans, because they're out there. And how many of them are out there that don't have contact or just out there and we don't even know, and that problem stems from somebody being homeless to somebody now being suicidal, and all that, starts with making contact with those folks. We have a lot of different ways that we do that, at least in our chapter, whether we're handing a business card out there with our contact information on there, or a QR code that goes to our Facebook or our social media pages and our soon to be up and running webpage, to just giving somebody your number or grabbing their phone and saying, here, you can call me anytime. So it is not unheard of or not out of the realm of possible for anybody out there to be able to reach out and receive help, veteran or not, and we will get them to the right organization and people that can do that. Because that's what it is. It's just, how do we improve the comm flow? That's what I would want to improve, for being able to identify folks out there that need that type of help.
Yeah, I think I'm being the master of the obvious here, but I think something that can't be underscored enough is when you guys are out there, either on, just a regular ride to go visit another chapter, or to go do an event and all that sort of stuff. I think the visibility, just when you guys are in line, in a procession, or in whatever, I think that sends a powerful message as well, right? A powerful message of unity, a powerful message of togetherness, a powerful message of just, you guys are going out there to do something, to help something. And I know that probably that's more prevalent in southern tier states, especially as the riding season, if you will, is a little bit longer. And I think that and I hope that folks are out there and they're aware, and that when they see an organization like you guys, that they know that yes, you guys are out there, of course, having fun and riding awesome, steel horses, if you will. But at the same time, I would argue that it's probably pretty much the vast majority of the time, you guys are going out there to bring goodness to somebody out there that needs the goodness in their lives. And I think that to me is, I know when I see the folks here in Vermont, riding around, and I see them often just down here at like either the VFW or whatever, that's kind of like, that's my first inclination, is to think that like someone out there is ready to experience some level of goodness because someone's, going out there to give someone a pick me up, if you will. So Cam, any final words?
No, I think no. Again, I just echo and say thank you, and I just believe that whether it's this conversation or some other conversations that we've been able to have, awareness, communication, I just don't know that we can do it enough. Bringing some of these terribly morbid stats to the people, so that hopefully there's, if it could save one person, right? Having this conversation, if it could save one person, then it's worth it. And then
Absolutely.
again, I think we just want to say thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Char, I would just, you mentioned in your little talk, and as stepping away from coaching, I had a smile because, I used to try to spend a lot of time, and I would fight with my administration about visibility. And I was trying to help 30 young men become men. And I preferred doing things for someone when no one was watching, and the goodness that you can feel in your heart to do something right. And again, I understand why it's publicly important to show and to spread the word, right? I don't want to be talking out of both sides of my mouth, but your story really hit home to, that 10 people made one guy's day, and it wasn't in the news. It's just for that one thing. And that was, Matt, you probably chuckle because, again, you've been part of those conversations I've had with my former administration. And that really hit home for me. So I just wanted to, say thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Carp. Thank you, Char. And thanks for, just taking care of veterans because, arguably just because of the people that you are. And it matters. It matters whether you guys are in Jersey, Florida, or anywhere else in the world. And I think the impact that you guys have had, regardless of the ceremony, regardless of the events you guys participate in, is pretty special. So thank you very much for continuing to fly the flag and represent the colors, arguably the colors of our country, and then the colors of your guys' organization. And again, thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Smitty. Thanks, Coach. Really, really good to be here. And again, what you guys are doing to get messaging out there, not just on this subject here, but on authentic leadership and instilling a foundation to your audience and your clients, I think is huge. So thanks for what you guys are doing. And it was absolutely a pleasure for us to be part of that today.